The quote that I've heard you often repeat is, the most dangerous person in the world is a man that is broken and alone.
If you look globally, the most unstable, violent societies in the world all have one thing in common. They have a disproportionate amount of young men with a lack of economic or romantic prospects. What do? We send them off to war. If they don't have economic prospects internally, they'll overthrow the government. So we find conflict and we send them off to war. Also, this younger generation of men is paying for the unfair advantage you and I had growing up. I was born in Los Angeles or Southern California in 1964. I hit the lottery. You know, being born a white heterosexual male just had huge advantage.
Welcome everyone. My name is Carlos, aka C. Welcome to the C Talks channel. If you're new, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's get into it. So that was Scott Galloway and Rich Roll talking about why the most dangerous person in the world is a man that is broken and alone. So for those of you who don't know who Scott Galloway is, he's an NYU professor and serial entrepreneur, and that was him on the Rich Roll podcast. So Scott Galloway says in that clip that globally, the most unstable, violent societies have one thing in common, and that's a disproportionate amount of young men with a lack of economic and romantic prospects. That makes me think of the United States. America is full of young, broken, and alone men. It should come as no surprise that over the past few years, America has become a way more violent, way more dangerous place to live in. The quality of life continues to go down. Men and women aren't dating in the US. Look at the dynamics between young men and young women. Young women are enrolling more in college. They're graduating at higher rates. They're landing higher paying jobs than their younger male counterparts. This is creating a terrible mating and dating environment in the US. And young men are fed up, and there are a lot of dangerous young males out there who are angry and bitter and acting out. Think of mass unalivings, because I know I can't say the other word on YouTube. Think of mass unalivings. They're all males. They're all males who are disenfranchised and go out, they grab a weapon, and they go to a mall and they unalive a few people and unalive themselves. It's crazy, right? The US, I think, is the only country that has that sort of magnitude of mass unalivings. Scott says, what is done with these young men who are broken and alone? They're sent off to war, because if young men don't have economic prospects internally, they're going to overthrow the government. So the government is not stupid. America is not stupid. The government will find conflict and send them off to war. That's what they do with all these broken, young, frustrated men. They send them off. I remember I had a couple of friends in high school that signed up for the army, and they went off to serve. I personally didn't like the fact that when I was 18 and I went to college and I got financial aid, I had to sign up for the selective service just to get financial aid. In my mind, I already had it planned out. If a war would have happened and I would have gotten drafted, I was going to take a plane ticket outside the US and go back to my home country, the DR, the Dominican Republic. That was my plan. I didn't have to execute that plan, obviously. But I didn't like the fact that I had to enroll and potentially face the possibility of being sent off to war as a young man. Scott and Rich talk about the fact that younger generations of men are paying for the unfair advantages that boomers and Gen Xers had. And I agree. Go on TikTok, go on YouTube. You will see young generations just venting at how crappy the financial situation is in the US, how low the quality of life is for them. They just work all the time. So I saw Scott say this in another interview. Who owns homes, stocks, and assets? Old people. Who works for wages and rents? Young people. It sucks to be a young person in America right now, especially a young male. It sucks. It's terrible. And young people are speaking up. Go on TikTok, Twitter, X, YouTube. There's tons of videos like this, like the ones I make, and other young men are speaking up and talking about these current issues. We're fed up. We really are. The forecast for young men in the US continues to be abysmal. Let's talk about college enrollment rates. Women are beating men by a lot. College graduation rates, the same thing. Women are beating men by a lot. Women are out earning men from the get-go. in their 20s, 30s, etc., etc. And dating dynamics are also abysmal. Young men and women aren't dating. Those that are dating, the young women, they're dating much older. They're dating a select few men. I don't really get into any of this red pill nerdy stuff, but you more or less know it by now. You've probably heard it all. So young men and women aren't dating. This is just a little my 2 cents on relationships. I learned a lot from my partners, just me in my 20s. When I had a ton of time, I was all over the place. But I had time to date, so I had quite a few girlfriends and I dated a lot in my 20s. I learned a lot from my relationships. The women that I dated gave me feedback. They told me things about me. They told me stuff, and I, for the most part, didn't listen. But here and there, I took a few nuggets. I listened to, what they said I could do better. The things they criticized me about. I listened a little bit, and I grew as a man by having relationships with women in my 20s. I feel bad for the guys that, because of whatever current climate we're in or how things are right now, they don't get the opportunity to date and grow as a man. Women are still dating. Men are dating less. But I think that a lot of men are missing out on opportunities to date and grow as men as a result. They're not having those experiences because young men and women in the West are not dating. So the forecast, if you're a young male in the West, is abysmal. It's terrible. Scott says this in this same video, but I did not show the clip. We're raising a generation of men who are going to be increasingly psychotic and crazy. It does not benefit anyone if the US is full of psychotic and crazy men with no economic prospects and no dating prospects. They're going to be broken and alone, and they're going to do terrible things. They're going to do terrible things. Something needs to be done. I don't know what off the top of my head, but there needs to be a culture shift. Culture shifts are already happening. Gen Z isn't doing dating apps. They're meeting in person. Maybe that'll give more opportunity to more normal guys to date and have relationships and learn and grow. Like I said before, I'm very thankful to all the girls that dated me in my 20s because I say that, and I say this now, right? I say this now as a 36-year-old millennial, more older, wiser, mature, just a little bit, a little more. But I learned a lot in my 20s due to the women that I dated. I grew a lot. You would have asked me this in my 20s, I would have said, man, what's wrong with these girls, man? But in my 30s, mid-30s, I see it now. Like, I grew. I matured as a man as a result of the women I dated. And I feel bad because these younger generations of men, because of the way dating dynamics are now, because everybody's on their phones and everything is social media and everything is cloud and blah, 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 and who knows who, and you got to look cool online. Like, they're not going to get these opportunities, sadly. They're going to grow up disenfranchised, angry, and alone. And who knows what they might do, right? If you look at crimes, unalivings, shootings, lootings, robberies, assault, most crimes are committed by men. Do we really want a large quantity of disenfranchised, broken men in the West? No, we don't, because things are going to just get worse if that happens. So Scott said this in another video that I saw of his. It's no one's obligation or duty to help these men and service these young men. Nobody's obligated to service these young men. They have to try to do better and improve themselves. They have to do this. But I think we're at a tipping point, and we need to have these sorts of conversations like the one that I'm having right now about the problem, because it is a problem. We cannot have so many young disenfranchised males around because they're going to cause havoc. Society is going to collapse, and it's going to get ugly. It is going to get ugly. So we need to talk about these things and see what we can do to improve the situation. All right. My name is Carlos, aka C. Appreciate you all watching. If you liked this video, you'll also like this other video up on the screen. I'll be back with more videos soon. I'll see you guys soon.